Hello YouTube! This video is all about the 400Zs coming out and I wanted to get prepped for it. So I want to find out all about the engine, the shortcomings, the good parts, the chassis, everything else. So what I have behind me is Rudy Martinez over at Texas Tires and Parts. He has a G35 with a VR30. I always forget, it's a DDTT?
VR30 DD. Now I don't even know.
Yeah, I get so confused about all this.
Me.
So anyways, we are going to talk about the future of the tuning of the platform of the 400Z as it comes out, how useful it's going to be to us, and the chassis and all that stuff. So let's get started. This is Rudy. This is his G35. Tell me all about it.
This is a G35. It makes 535 foot-pounds of torque. It makes 480 horsepower. It's pretty much all stock, believe it or not. We're on BC suspension with the Y-Fab angle. These are handmade fenders right here in this shop.
Beautiful.
eBay side skirts, GK Tech mirrors, and in-house made fenders, and that's pretty much it as far as that goes.
But what we're talking about is the engine platform and how it's going to relate to the future of drifting and if it's going to be useful. Because the G35, 350Z, 370Z has been kind of a staple of drifting and kind of kept drifting alive in the United States. If we were relying on all the 240s to keep us going forever, we'd be screwed.
Yeah, so as far as the new 400Z, I think it's going to be decent, but you're going to have to put in quite a bit of work. So one thing that before, when we did Drift Week, it had the normal...
Back up for 1 second.
Okay.
This was a G35. You bought it for like $2,500. It was a DE VQ35 DE, so non-HR. Yeah. It was very slow, and you swapped it before Drift Week in just a few weeks with your buddies, and you put a VR out of a Q50 in it?
Yes.
Is this the fancy red package or whatever?
This is just a normal base model one. Yeah, we completely ruined the super simple G35.
And this is going to be the 400Z platform, right? It's just going to be this engine.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
Same motor, same transmission that you're going to find in the new one. It's going to be a JK41. Gosh, now I'm lost.
I interrupted you. I interrupt everyone.
Yeah,
You're about to tell us about how the car is going to function with heat and power, the limitations of the factory everything, the intercoolers, the transmission,
anyways,
wiring.
The wiring.
No, just start off at the beginning.
Oh gosh, okay. You're going to have to cut so much out.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
Go.
I hope you do.
Nope.
Please cut it out.
Nope.
Okay, so anyways, new 370Zs or 400Zs coming out. The only thing that's going to be a problematic thing is everything's going to be surrounded by the cooling issues. So before, you had water tanks cooling the turbos, cooling the air to water, it's called. But the problem is anything over 120 degrees Fahrenheit, it starts pulling back timing on the motor, which we live in Houston, so everything's always 120 degrees to start out with. That means you do 3 pulls down the highway, this thing's gonna fall flat on its face. So I don't know how Nissan plans to get away with something like that, especially with people of our generation, kids essentially, like we're gonna be beating the crap out of this car. And then, so one thing that I did to combat that with me and Ben and from VPF Tuning, we built the front mount intercooler and got rid of that. And it's overly done. It's made for 1,000 horsepower, but like it never heat soaks, never rises in temperature, never going to be an issue. The worst thing about these cars is probably the oil temperature. So this is a Red Sport oil cooler setup. And sorry, we're going to jump around here. And the problem with this oil cooler setup is that there's a thermostat inside of here. And so when the thermostat opens up, gets to operating temperature, it circulates through the oil cooler. Instead, it goes back to the oil pan instead of going back to the rotating assembly. So when you have like a race car application, you want to cool all the oil that's going back into the rotating assembly, because that's like the veins in your body. Like if the inside of the motor is cool, then the outside of the motor should be cooler as well. So this isn't a very good design for a race car. I don't know what they intended for OEM applications, whether just to maintain the heat. They probably didn't know that we're gonna beat the crap out of these cars at all. But other than that, I went ahead and did some revisions, and basically this bolts on to where this was. Bolts onto the oil pan. You got a dash 10. Comes over here to our oil filter in a super weird spot, but it's easy. I just loosen it, drop it. And then there's a 30-row oil cooler now. And then now we have a ton of space. And then this circulates back into the oil pistons and rods and head and everything, and it cools everything. Which before, like, you know, when I was driving it regularly, it runs around 20 degrees Fahrenheit of oil temps, but now it's like at 175 degrees, and then when I beat on it, it kind of rises up, but not much. And the thing is like when we're drifting, I would see like 240 degrees of temperature on the oil cooler stuff, and sometimes higher, just depending on how ignorant we were being.
Really quickly, what is the problem with the high temperature on the oil and intake temps in this? Like, why do you not want them? I understand that they're high and everything. It just completely bonks the car into limp mode, right?
Yeah, so one thing, you're going to get a better chance of rod knock because the oil thins out, and then and same thing with the coolant as well, is like if you're keeping all those down, like if you're raising those, you could potentially blow a head gasket as well, which sometimes I've heard some of these motors doing. I haven't had that problem yet.
So how many laps could you get out of the car on track before the thing would go into limp mode before these modifications, and now how many?
Okay, so when we first did the car, we got like 1.5 laps at Speed Sports. We would do one solid lap and then boom, and then but we changed so much things, like the intakes being inside the engine bay, we dropped those 45 degrees, even though they're right here now. You know, you're not sucking in that hot. So there's just preventions all around. And then when we went on Drift Week, we had, the first modification was putting the intakes outside. And then we got like 4 laps, and then we would have to go cool it down. And then when we did the front mount intercooler, we did the Coda demo. And I think we did like 8-hour rides all day, but I would still watch the oil temps and then like let it idle while everyone was getting inside the car for doing the ride along stuff. And then now that I've built this, we're just kind of in a normal drift car type thing. It kind of can run for a very long time, depending on like how much we're beating it. But like if you're out there with Z's and stuff and you're not like heavily, like if you're just enjoying it with your friends, you can do as many laps as you want. But if you're like gripping it up and stuff, that's when heat, you know, turns into, when you put a lot of mechanical grip into the thing, that's when, you know, heat starts developing. But other than that, it cools down right away. It's not an issue no longer because we've made so many things.
So you've opened up a bunch more questions for me. The next one being, why did the Nissan like G35 or whatever this is the Q50 drivetrain in a G35, and then like the Z34, is it Z34? Yeah, 400Z is going to use this. Why would they go to a platform that can't dissipate heat and goes into limp mode immediately? Because that's not a lot of like driving joy and excitement if you can't even do, you know, a few pulls on the highway before the thing goes into limp mode.
I am kind of skeptical of how far they'll get along before, you know, and how much testing they've done with the car. Like, as soon as someone takes it to a track day, you're gonna make 2 laps maybe, because we did a track day on this thing, and I went, temperatures were like 260 degrees Fahrenheit on the coolant.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars that can't make a track day now because of heat.
Yeah, and like you're
not even Z06 like supercharged C7s can do it, I don't think.
Yeah, so I don't
think they overheat.
I think and that's when we were already starting to make like revisions and all this stuff that comes out. So I can't imagine like anyone drifting it right out of the box or doing anything crazy, especially. But for the tuning side and making horsepower, it's phenomenal. Like you can't, I don't know, like 400 horsepower right out of the box, and then like now we're starting to push to like in the fives almost. Like Ben has a stock turboed car, and it's like that he's tuning, and it's like 498 or something like that.
That was
horsepower.
in the Q50?
Yeah, on 93 octane too.
And was that through an auto or through a manual?
Auto. The Q50s only come automatic.
Okay.
That's how we
I
ended
didn't know
up
if
in
somebody swapped it yet.
Yeah, one person did a Q60, but it was like a big shop. Man, I think it could be like Z1 Motorsports or something. Right. Something I don't know about.
Continue showing me stuff about this drivetrain, because all the 400Z nerds are going to have questions. Why did they go to air-to-water intercoolers, and what is the benefit of those, and what's the bad parts?
I think the air-to-water stuff works for efficiency, and it hits really hard, like if you're talking about like boost from, because the air-to-water, you're taking the, coming off this turbo pipe, and you're going straight into here. So like the time that it takes is a lot less, but I really don't feel it as being an issue.
What you're saying is you're deleting all of the intercooler piping, and you're making the charge piping super short, so it's more responsive?
Yes, it's way more it should be way more responsive, but I really don't feel it that much like you would think, like you would say turbo lag. I don't really feel it at all, and I drive it every day. I don't feel any benefits other than trying to make the package smaller, because inside of a Q50, this motor is stuffed in there, and there's like a lot of things going on. We don't have AC anymore, and we don't have like a lot of things that take a bunch of room with the Q50, because we simplified everything, even though everything's complicated, but it's simplified because it's sort of kind of border race car, regular car.
It's a race car.
It's a race car.
Okay, so tell me something else about it. What's the difference between the red sport stuff and the non-red sport stuff?
Oh gosh, on the they call it a silver. On the silver side, which is like the base model, you get 300 horsepower, and that's pretty much it. But if you do tuning, you can catch yourself up. On the red sport, you get optical sensors on the turbo wheels. There's an extra auxiliary coolant pump. And the last thing is this guy right here, which still kind of sucks. Other than that, there's not really any big difference besides anything but tuning. That tuning wouldn't be able to catch you up with.
Is there anything else different about the cars? Probably brakes.
Probably trim model stuff, brakes and sports.
Should a person be interested in getting the red sport package on one of the VR cars, or is it instantly the same after you tune it? I think
basically? It's just, on the tuning side it's fine, but there's also like luxury models, base models, and the luxury models look completely different.
I just mean for power.
Yeah, no, I would definitely just do whatever one you find that's the cheap, if you're trying to be cheap like me. Find the cheapest one and then tune it, and then you're going to catch right back up, and then you can add little things like this later if needed.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
That was it.
Did you state the exact horsepower and torque numbers of this thing yet?
Yeah, it makes 480 horsepower and 535 foot-pounds of torque.
Do you think that's what 400Z owners should expect off of a tune and some mild upgrades like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Is it required to go to these intercooler setups and air intakes and everything to get that horsepower?
So,
or will they do it just off a tune?
like more horsepower, more temperature increase. So you'll definitely run into, more boost and more pressure and everything. Like as soon as you start heating it up, you're going to increase that with the amount of boost pressure that you're introducing into the motor. So where was that going? I don't know, man. But you're not going to make it very far if you do a tune and you don't do something to combat the temperatures that you're going to create with making more horsepower. So it's anyone should be able to do that. Like you will have to get rid of the downpipes. The downpipes, so the catalytic converters, that's about 60 foot-pounds of torque right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's just a big restriction in the system. So I think that'll be up to the person and how far they want to delete their warranty on the 400Z.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically the biggest restriction?
I think that's probably the biggest restriction. Everything else is fine.
Do you see a reduction in temperatures and stuff by deleting those?
Well,
I've heard people tell me before that a car will run cooler, swapping out the downpipes on a turbo car and things like that.
Yeah, because the catalytic converter, like just with the platinum, palladium, like the materials that it's built with, you're looking at 2,000 degree stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like if it's just blowing through, it should probably reduce that. Probably, I would say around.
Did you see an actual reduction?
Horsepower. No, because like now the car runs so cool. Like I'm worried about warming it up instead of like how far the temperature's raised. That was kind of one of the last mods that I did. The fueling is pretty much stock. There's nothing. I built this one line, but that was just for the swap. Everything's stock as far as the fueling, except for the fuel pump. Now I have a 480, but that's an off-the-shelf thing, and you could probably get that for about $100 or something.
So if you wanted to, like if a person wanted to find resources for this stuff, where's the best place to go? Who's the best company right now tuning these things? Who is the best person for aftermarket parts? Like your downpipes, where do you get them? Where do you get your tune? Where do you get all these things?
Okay, so I did the swap by myself here before Drift Week, and then Ben's a fabricator and a tuner, so obviously he came with me on Drift Week because he's my really good friend, and we co-drove. So he did the tuning. I got the car running. He also fabricates as the downpipes he just made. This is his second set, and they're all V-band, 3-inch downpipes, very loud. And then he made the front mount intercooler, and everything's been made by scratch, but now he's starting to sell these parts. Like the downpipes are $800, and then this is like a $4,000 piece now. And other than that,
wait, what was a $4,000 piece?
The front mount intercooler.
What?
It's all made by hand. Like this is
$4,000 for the front mount?
Yeah. So this was just a core, and that's it. And like all the tanks and everything are built by hand. And
is there going to be a more cost-effective solution?
If you're talking about material,
well, I'm just saying G35 people and like Nissan people are typically extremely cheap.
That's why it's just me here by myself with no one else with the VR30 swap. Really, I mean, there's like 2 people maybe, but like they run okay, and they're not really track cars. They're more of enjoyable cars. But there are some, but like this thing's gonna run like a tank compared to like those cars. No offense, guys. I know you're gonna watch it.
I just realized that I was thinking this was I know the swap is not budget oriented, but I was thinking the power out of a 400Z would be budget oriented to have a car that could go around a track and not overheat.
I think.
So how much would it cost to have a car go around a track and not overheat?
Oh, just that alone?
I mean, like tuned and it's like.
No.
You know,
I
how much is a tune? $700?
So let's just say 4, and then plus. I have only made one of these, so I don't even know because we would have to do some fitting. Then I have to, on my car it's metal CNC'd, but I don't even know how much like this would cost because we did this next door. It's just one of those luxuries of like being capable of doing stuff. So let's just say this could be like potentially an $800 oil kit because no one's gonna
gasp. I'm holding my chest. Keep
no
going.
one's gonna buy just this piece. Like I would like to sell this piece and not have to worry about it, but everyone's gonna want a whole kit of an oil cooler and an oil filter relocation. And I know that oil filter relocation piece by itself cost me like $200. So you put $300 here and you put an oil cooler, that's another $300. You're close to $800 by the time you make lines.
Okay, let me get my brain around this.
Yeah.
Tune, how much? $700, I'm guessing.
No, because you need an Ecutech license.
Oh, $1,000.
$1,000.
Front mount, 4,000. We're up to 5,000.
Yep.
Downpipes.
Downpipes.
They're handmade. So how much are downpipes?
$800.
Okay, so we'll just say 1,000 after you get a little
1,000
pieces.
Shipping and everything.
We're at 6,000 intakes, blow-off valves.
So the blow-off valves. Those are like $800 because you need 2 of them, and they're HKS, and they already make them. They're all priced around the same. They're around $600 to $800, but.
And is it stock radiator still?
No, it has a Mishimoto.
So we're probably $6,000 to $7,000
just cooling
and cooling and a tune to make this thing go around the track.
God, don't
this
say
doesn't
it like that.
sound viable.
No, it's not. That's why when people ask me, I'm just like, go buy a Q50 and manual trans swap that instead.
But I mean, we haven't even talked about the cost of the engine, swapping it in,
getting
the
a
manual transmission on it.
Ridiculously too.
This is a completely non-viable thing now.
I don't like where this conversation's going.
Well, no, we're just talking about 400Z stuff. So it doesn't sound like. how do I say? Is there going to be a cheap, like $400 front mount intercooler solution for these cars? I mean, there's got to be.
It's too new. You got to think of like how many people are riding around with these swaps.
Right, but eBay for like say BMW 335i's and things like that, they have $190 intercooler kits. The 400Z is going to have a cheap intercooler kit. It's going to have a cheap downpipes.
I'm sure there's
going to be a lot of those things.
there's going to be a $2,000 one, but you know, we're over the top, and I think we're getting to the age where like we're tired of messing around with kind of like crappy parts, I would say.
No, I get that.
So like we're just like, okay, let's just do the best we can.
I'm just thinking of the viability of the platform as a tuning thing for drift events. Because 350Zs, you literally you can drift a 350Z absolutely exactly how it is all day long, and it just isn't optimal with, you know, suspension and, you know, angle and a handbrake and those things.
No, for sure.
But the engines are tanks and they don't care.
I think
you're
definitely going to be about $5,000 in cooling probably before you start drifting.
Mesker does 0 cooling modifications to his
You're
350Z.
going to go buy a 350Z instead and probably drift that instead because it's still going to be cheaper. But it'll probably catch up. What
if people just buy 400Zs and turn all the boost out? Just like make it 0 and put it in limp mode to go around the track?
That's why I don't understand what kind of testing did Nissan did, because they're already stressing me out with their 400Z, and I'm like, did you guys even do anything, or you guys just drove it around like a Q50? So that stresses me out looking at it, because I looked at the pictures and I'm like, man, it looks exactly the same as a Q50. They did absolutely no work in trying to overheat this thing.
So it sounds like they just wanted to hit some horsepower numbers and make it kind of fun and peppy around town, but there's no way without massive cooling changes that you're going to make that thing go around a track.
Like if this is all open, like if you look at a 400Z, a Q50, all that stuff
it's way more packed.
It's way more packed, and all that does is like keep temperatures inside. I mean, we noticed, yes, it's ugly, but we added these, and this did a little something, even though it's ugly, but, you know, we did that, and you're not going to do that to your 400Z, cut a hole in the hood. I mean, maybe you would, but...
There's people that paint their hoods black just so they look like carbon fiber on new cars. Okay, I think that you've answered most of the questions about the 400Z platform then. Is there anything you can't talk about, like I
don't care.
You want to say?
No, it's fun.
You did it all?
Like, there's definitely cheaper, more thrills in life. If you're not capable of doing something yourself, I mean, besides 400Zs and going to buy it, but like doing the swap is probably impractical on a major level.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the swap.
No, that's why I threw that in there, because there's going to be a bunch of kids afterwards. I've gotten calls from...
Think about how much cheaper it would be to do an LS1 in one of these.
100%. You could put any other motor in this thing, it'll be cheaper. JZ, LS, whatever you want is super cheap.
It just sounds like Nissan screwed the pooch on it.
Yes. 100%.
It's not a replacement for a JZ then.
No.
But it makes more power than your JZ.
It does. It's super fun, but it came with a price.
It's such a, what do you call it? Like a...
It's a one-off.
No, I was going to say it's such a, like a, it tricks you. Yeah. Like you see the power numbers and everything and you think it's going to be the solution, and then you realize that the cooling is just a gigantic disaster and it's a mess.
You see this guy, you see it's like $5,000, and then you're like, oh, transmission, that's all I need. It bolts right up, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get that. You can make it running and driving for under 10.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to do this shit around town, then that's fine. But like as soon as you want to do the cool stuff, that's when it becomes a problem.
Okay. All right, I think we're done.
Great.
Unless you have any other suggestions or anything.
It's still the coolest G35 on the planet. That's it.
You think so? Out of the way.
Hey, this thing's...
Out of the way. It looks pretty cool. Tell us in the comments what you guys think. Oh, I should point the camera at me. Tell us in the comments what you guys think, if the 400Z is going to be a viable platform, if the aftermarket's going to catch up. I think that there's going to be $200 intercooler kits, $1,000 tunes, radiator setups, and everybody's just going to kind of make it work. It is a ton of power, which is pretty cool. VQs did not want to put out that kind of power. And you still had to cool them and do intercooler kits and all this other stuff. And I still think that like eBay's going to catch up on intercooler kits, even if they're just like ho-hum.
I mean, I'm about eBay stuff.
I hear $4,000 intercooler kits, and I'm just like, this dude's nuts. Okay. Thank you so much, Rudy. You want to plug your shop real quick?
Oh, not really, but we'll do it anyways.
There it is.
Okay, we're here at Texas Tires and Parts. Like